Mighty Cleveland kids are trying a new road to success at the Entrepreneurship Preparatory School. It's a charter school that just completed its first academic year. Students began class last August, ended the year on the 19th of July, and will be back at it again in about a month. We had the school's founder and its principal, or head of school, on the show a year ago. Promised to have them back to tell us how they're doing. And they're here now, and you're doing well, aren't you?
Yes, we are.
How's it going?
It's going great. In fact, we just received our results for the Ohio Achievement Test, and our students have made huge gains. They started with this, we tested them as soon as they entered our building, right? And they started at 7% at a reading comprehension level. 7% of our students, 7% to 75% in our first year. And in math, it was 12% proficient or above, and now it's 62%. Which is really unheard of.
Did I see a reference in a newspaper story? I might have read it wrong, or it might have been a mistake in the story, that you changed the wording on some of the questions?
No, we didn't change the wording. So actually, what we did was we took the 5th grade, what they were supposed to learn at the end of the 5th grade, and we used that as an assessment. We said, these are the concepts you were supposed to master at the end of the 5th grade. And can you believe that only 7% were reading on grade level?
My goodness.
Right? And then now, 75%, and that was in 8 months. 8 months of class.
Well, before we go any further with some of these things which are very interesting, why don't you tell us how this thing got started and whose idea it was and how you got it off the ground?
Sure.
What's it supposed to do?
It was back in the end of 2004, and we've done quite a bit of work with the Cleveland schools with our after-school program called E-City, teaching kids about entrepreneurship, and just got to the realization that we thought we could do something different and try some new models in Cleveland that haven't been tried here yet. So after visiting dozens of the top performing urban charter schools in the country, primarily in Boston, Newark, New York, and Washington, and they're all over the country though, we brought back some of those best practices to Cleveland. We hired Marshall as the head of school. Marshall went through a 1-year fellowship in Boston with building excellent schools to learn the best practices of 50, 60 top performing schools across the country. And we opened in August. Sounds simple.
I'm sure it wasn't that simple, no. Now, where's the money coming from the school system? Or?
Well, the state of Ohio is supposed to pay for quality public education by law.
I know.
So, translated to Entrepreneurship Prep School, that means they pay for half of our education. So that means we have another half that we have to raise privately. And this community has done a fantastic job, from every major foundation in town to individuals to corporations. We have raised the other half of the money. But that is a big problem, Dick. Yeah. It's a huge problem because here's a school delivering quality results. Kids' lives are changing. These kids are going to go to college. And the state says, well, you should be able to do that for $5,561. It's ridiculous, yeah.
Well, tell me, how do you select the kids?
Well, it's open enrollment. We are, by law, a public school, as all other charter schools, so we have a lottery. And that means if we have, right now we just closed enrollment. Well, we have a couple slots left, but we're enrolling 130 new 6th graders. If we have over 200 or 300 interested families, we have to randomly select by lottery our incoming class. And so we can't select, there's no test, there's no admission criteria. Whoever shows up at our door, we have to educate.
So it's like Forrest Gump's box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
Exactly.
Until you pick the number out of the lottery. And you get all kinds, I imagine. What are the main challenges you have? You mentioned reading. Is it reading? Is that the main one?
Reading, mathematics, writing, behavioral issues. For a lot of our students, this was their 3rd stop in like the last 2 years. This was their 3rd school. Typically what you get in your 1st year as a startup school, there are families who were disgruntled with the public school system. They felt that their students were being either harassed, bullied. They felt that the teachers either didn't care. And a lot of it's how they felt, but they pulled their child out of an existing school and put them into our school. And this was our 1st year. So the 1st year you get students that may not have passed the 5th grade or may not have been prepared for the 6th grade, students that may have been expelled from other schools, and that's what we got our 1st year. To take a look at our students now, totally different.
I noticed with a great deal of appreciation that you put a very heavy emphasis on behavioral problems that the kids have. They can't talk much or maybe at all when they're walking from class to class.
Right.
They have to be polite, know how to address you.
Sure.
If you come over there to meet them, they have to greet you with a firm handshake and a look in the eye.
That's right.
Now, this must be stuff they're not teaching too vividly over at the other public schools, I would imagine.
Well, we emphasize that. I think those are the soft skills that you need to have in order to be successful in life. And so we ask our teachers to greet all of our students with a handshake before you enter the classroom, and it means business. This is what we're going to do. The teacher cares enough to shake your hand and look you in the eye and say, hey, welcome to my classroom. And it sort of sets the tone for the student, and we're able to really milk all time for instructional classroom. So.
Is this the school of the future? Will every school in the city of Cleveland someday have a program like
Wouldn't that be neat? I mean, I always thought about Cleveland being a beacon for urban education. I mean, wouldn't it be absolutely fantastic if we got to the point where every school in Cleveland had safe, disciplined, structured, and high expectations so all kids could achieve and go to college? Because that's what we believe. Every teacher in our school believes that every child that walks in that classroom can learn and can go to college.
Well, you call them the class of whatever year it would be they would graduate from a four-year college, right?
That's exactly
Which
right.
is interesting, just to keep it in front of their noses all the time. That's your target, that's your goal, that's where you're going here. But what would prevent, I mean, I remember I went to John Adams High School. I went to all the Cleveland schools when I was growing up. And I used to always feel that it was a shame that the public schools couldn't have the same kind of alumni program that colleges have. I'm always getting tapped by Ohio University to send them money, which I must confess I rarely do. I would have frankly been much more willing to give it to Adams. But there's no setup like that, is there? Because you're talking about how you have to raise part of this money privately.
Yeah.
It sounds like it might be a good way to do it.
Actually, you know, kind of a dream of ours, I probably won't be around to see it, but picture these kids graduating in 2017. Some of them go on to be very successful doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs, whatever they are. Who knows, by 2037, maybe they'll be funding the school, you know. And why not? You know, it's like pay it forward and so forth.
Well, since the story was in the paper and on television about how good your results were, you mentioned you may have 200 families that want to apply. I bet that number is going to begin going up.
Right.
Have they been knocking on your door recently?
Actually, ironically, no,
Is that-
they haven't. It's tough because our families, to reach our targeted market, it's tough. It really is. It's a huge challenge. I think a lot of families don't make that decision about where their child is going to go to school until right before class starts. And so it's a struggle. I mean, I think if you were to talk to or ask 100 people outside of this room, have you ever heard of ePrep? Maybe one person has heard of us. So we have this, and we've had enormous success this year, but we still are having trouble getting families through the door.
And you have a zero tolerance on bad behavior.
Zero tolerance on bad behavior. And you know, it sounds really strict, but I think the students, if you ask any of our students, they want to go to a school where there are no fist fights. They want to go to a school where there's no harassing, and so they really, it's a lot of buy-in on their part, and so they really help create the culture.
Have they taken to courtesy rather quickly and well?
Have they taken to our courtesy?
To courtesy?
Oh yes, they have, and that's only because of the zero tolerance. So you hear a lot of thank yous and no thank yous and things of that nature.
They don't want to get bounced out.
Right, and I think they love their school if you were to ask them.
Now, did you mention to me that when you had discussed this with public school officials, Cleveland public school officials, you found there was some resistance to this idea on the part of teachers?
No, actually, the school district, Gene Sanders, Craig Cotner, and the entire, they've been extremely supportive. They're our sponsors, and so they have gone out of their way to embrace this concept. In fact, you know, when you listen to Gene talk about what he wants to do with some of the pilot schools, it sounds an awful lot like what Marshall is implementing at Entrepreneurship Prep School.
How about, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, so the administration over there, and there are partners on this, and we appreciate all they've done.
What's happened in these other cities? You said you spent some time in Boston. Have the schools there multiplied, these kind of schools?
Yes, they have. In fact, what they do is they start out with one. They make sure that it's viable, it's a huge success, and then what you start to see is either the district starts to take practices out of the school, and then they replicate over years. And there are a lot of successful 6th through 12th grade programs that we modeled ePrep after. Boston Prep, the North Star in Newark, New Jersey, Milwaukee College Prep in Milwaukee. So there are a number of anomalous high-achieving schools across the country.
Is there one key secret to the success of what you're doing?
High expectations for students and teachers.
That's it. So all we've heard all these years about if kids don't think they can succeed, people treat them like they can't succeed, then they're not going to succeed.
From day one when they enter the school at 6:30 in the morning, first day of school, they're greeted with a handshake and said, "You're going to college." It's not even I don't even think they think that's an option anymore.
No,
So they are going to go to
A year
college.
from now, come on back and tell us how you're doing then. And we'll
Thanks.
be glad to see you and have you back again.
We'll be back. Thanks, Dave.
Congratulations on your success.
Thank you.
So I want to thank John Zitzner and Marshall Emerson for the third E-Prep for being here. And thank you for tuning in. We'll see you again next week.